Listeners and viewers, welcome to another episode of Strat Xtra. I am your host and trusted advisor, Joe Williams. Today's show is going to be a little bit different. Rather than focusing in on a specific technology or trend that we're seeing in our industry, we've brought in someone that we've worked with to offer his feedback on the services and experiences he's had with our team over time. So please join me in welcoming our guest, controller from Nealey Foods, Bob Bergadon. Bob, welcome.
Thanks, Joe. Thanks for having me.
Excellent, excellent. So before we talk about us, as in Stratosphere, I want to talk about us, you and I, because there's a pretty unique story that I'd like to share with our audience because we go way, way back. You know, when we first met, I was a brace-faced teenager with a bowl cut. Your son Chris and I played hockey all through middle school and high school together. Our weekends consisted of either home games on our ice or Holiday Inns somewhere throughout the Southeast. Fast forward to my early 30s, Chris and I reconnected via Facebook, ended up going out for beers to catch up, started talking about, oh, you know, what are your folks up to? What are my folks up to, et cetera. And in doing so, found out that not only was I back in Chicagoland, but you were too. And you actually were working for a client of ours at the time, and it was American Fluorescent. So let's start there. This was actually the first time that, you know, you and I linked up after the middle school and the high school days. And so it was a little weird for me to call you Bob versus Mr. Bergadon. But, you know, I really think that was the beginning of our professional relationship and essentially the beginning of your technology journey with us. So can you kind of talk about how that started, kind of how things progressed, because you really had a chance to experience us from both sides of the coin, IT and telephony.
Sure. Well, we first of all, yeah, it was a little hard for me to call you Mr. Williams, but yeah, knowing you for a long time, it really was fairly easy for me to, you know, reconnect with you as someone who, after knowing you, your folks for a long time, I felt comfortable with someone I could trust to give me an honest assessment of where we stood as a company day one and how we could go from, you know, point A to point B over time. And so at the time when I was with AFX, we had our own internal IT people, but we needed some support for some new initiatives we were going to be rolling out. And we decided that Stratosphere would be a fit. And since we had already been working with you for a while, it all kind of just dovetailed into a relationship that not only served me as someone fairly new to AFX, but also the company in total. It helped me out as the CFO at that time, manage IT, which I know enough to be dangerous, but I really don't know enough to technically guide a staff of people. So it was nice to have a partner that I could rely on for direction and help when we needed it.
Awesome. Awesome. I appreciate that. And just to kind of dive a little bit deeper into that, you know, to your point, you did have internal IT staff. So we were essentially supplementing that individual or those individuals. We had put the phone system in years prior to us even actually connecting. But the beginning of the relationship there was essentially just us providing full-on managed telephony support. So supporting the Avaya infrastructure that was in place there at AFX.
Sure. And again, it's something that, you know, it's the lifeblood of any company. You know, especially us as a sales organization, we need to have the telephones in place. We need to have them up and running. They go down, you know, we go down. And so we needed someone strong that we could rely on. And Stratosphere was able to fill that bill for us for sure. Our internal people knew enough, you know, on a, you know, day-to-day one-off question scenario they could handle. But when we had problems, when we wanted to expand, when we wanted to add, you know, we needed a little bit more depth, and Stratosphere provided that depth for us for sure.
Awesome. Thank you for that. Thank you. So then, you know, let's fast forward a bit. You know, you transition away from AFX and you move over to Nealey Foods, family-run business, a lot of history, a lot of I guess we can call it old school technology, old school processes. Talk to us, or talk to me a little bit about, how that played out and how we sort of kind of massaged our way into that role
Sure,
from
sure.
an IT
Well,
perspective.
I left AFX and moved over to Nealey Foods, where I am now, basically as a temporary controller. They lost their previous controller. They needed somebody to step in real quick and handle things. And when I got there, it was pretty manual. It
Mhm.
was, um, we had a small system that handled our billing and receivables, but everything else was done on, with paper and pencil. And so immediately I started looking into the IT side, which was supported by a guy who had worked with Nealey Foods for a long time, created, for lack of a better term, the proprietary little software package that we were using. And it got us by, as a $200+ million company, it got us by just fine. But over the course of time, we decided that we wanted a little bit more with regards to our system, how much it provided for us, and we needed some help. We were also at the same time working on a project moving from our Fulton Market location in Chicago to a new location because of the transition of the Fulton Market area from the old meatpacking district from 30, 40 years ago to a new upscale type area of the city. So we had systems issues, we had facilities issues, we had a lot of things going on. And after I was hired about 3 months later as the controller at Nealey Foods, I was then able to, feel more comfortable bringing in some support. And the first person I called was you, Joe, because I know we needed IT support. No offense to our previous person, but he was getting up in years, and we wanted to change systems. And he even admitted that he wasn't the systems guy to take us the next step. So first we had to get infrastructure in place before we could even talk about an ERP system to help run the business.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where Stratosphere came into play. We worked with a couple of technicians in the very beginning who were excellent. I mean, they were, I felt extremely comfortable with them, and they provided everything we needed to get ourselves from, for lack of a better term, a fully enclosed system. I mean, you couldn't, with the system we were using when I started in 2014, 15, you couldn't get outside the building using that system.
Mm-hmm.
And that was by design, and that was fine for the time it was used. But we now needed to do something better. We needed to have remote access so salesmen could put in orders from the outside. So before we ran into and got a system, an ERP system to help us with that, we needed to put in the infrastructure to support the ERP system, putting the horse in front of the cart, so to say. So we wanted to do it the right way, and Stratosphere helped us get that done.
Awesome. Yeah. I think it's kind of like a bit of a facelift in a sense. You guys went through a facelift with the old, from the old building to the new building, the old infrastructure to the new infrastructure. I know we helped out with some firewalls. I know we helped out with some switches, some cabling potentially too. When would you say though was sort of the aha moment though that you wanted to lean towards or engage us for full on comprehensive support, like just everything day to day? Because I know you had talked about working with other individuals that were part of your team or teams, but completely outsourcing and going to a company like us, would you say that was right around the same time?
Oh yeah, right about that same time. When we chose the ERP system that we have, which is food industry specific, at that point, I came to a crossroads. I knew that I couldn't support IT
Mm-hmm.
and a new ERP system. So really the aha moment was, for me, was actually, there were two pieces to this puzzle. Number one, the aha moment was when we first went to the ERP system and we were able to outfit this older building in the city of Chicago with the hardware technology we needed to start running the system, because even though we had already chosen a new facility, the facility needed to be built out for our needs. And so we wanted to start the ERP system before we got to the new facility. So aha moment number one was we need a partner, a full partner to help us get started at Fulton Market. And that's what happened when we brought Stratosphere in. Again, that's where the technicians really shined. They were able to utilize some of the stuff we had in the building, set up some new operations, and it made it a lot easier for us to get going on the ERP system at Fulton using Stratosphere. Aha moment number two was, okay, our building down here on South Pulaski in Chicago was ready to go. How in the world do we move the system? Okay. And fortunately, because we had set our sights on using Stratosphere in a more full line capacity, what we decided was, number one, the product had to get here, so we moved all the product here over Labor Day weekend 2017. But come that first Tuesday after Labor Day, we had to be able to process transactions in a new facility. Now, being the conservative person that I am, I didn't want to risk too much at one time. So I said, is there a way that we can leave the servers at Fulton, because we didn't have to get out of that building right away, but still be able to talk to Pulaski so the people at Pulaski could do their work? So what we did with Stratosphere's help was we set up a totally complete structure here at Pulaski, and basically Pulaski talked to Fulton and Fulton talked back to Pulaski. And on that Tuesday morning, when everyone came in at 4 o'clock in the morning to start processing transactions,
the early hours,
you could not tell the difference that you were at Pulaski at a new facility or on Fulton in the old facility. The system worked fine. We had a few hiccups that were non-IT related, but as far as the system goes, everything worked fine. Then in conversations with some of the techs at Stratosphere, we sort of set up a timeline for about 6 weeks later, once the dust settled here at Pulaski. Then we set up a time where over a weekend, Saturday, Sunday, we were able to move all the servers from Fulton to Pulaski. And when people came in on Monday morning, it was the same as when they left on Friday afternoon. So again, two specific moments in time where I was glad I decided to do what I wanted to do when we were at Fulton, and B, the double payoff at Pulaski when things worked very smoothly, moving the whole system from one location to the other.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I appreciate that feedback. It was really cool to be a part of that project, and it was cool for me too to see the facility actually after the fact too. Because I had been to both locations. Being in Fulton Market, there's all the history there, and that's really cool. And it's very different now, as I'm sure you know.
Sure.
But seeing the new facility and seeing how you guys grew as an organization and how much more space that you had to do what you do, knowing what you do, and to optimize really what you do, both from the technology side and your day-to-day business. It was awesome to be a part of. So how would you say that working with us has kind of impacted the workflow or the business today?
Well, it's interesting because I've been thinking about that a little bit, and its impact is sort of under the radar. Excuse me. It's one of those things where when nothing goes wrong and everything is working, nobody really is talking about, hey, how's Stratosphere doing? How's their work doing for us? Everything is working fine. The setup was working. The key for me is when we do have a problem, it sort of comes out of nowhere, out of left field, so to say, and we have to react quickly. And in the times that we've had, fortunately, we haven't had that many, But in the times that we've had issues, Stratosphere, even, between 8 and 5 and after hours, have been very responsive to our needs and helped us quickly resolve some things, even some weekend things, which we have a few things that get done on the weekends. And when they go south, you have to get them up and running again before Monday morning. Again, the 2 a.m. to 4 a.m.
Right.
target. So it needs to be handled right away. And we've had great success with support from Stratosphere.
Awesome. Awesome. So last question, then I'll let you go. What would you say, or what advice would you give to someone who's sort of on the fence about, whether or not they should consider outsourcing their IT to someone like us or to one of our partners?
Well, what I would say to anybody, another controller, person that's responsible for more than just IT in an organization, I would say, regardless of whether you have IT people on staff or not, I would heavily investigate the use of a partner, because it's helped me quite a bit to really not have to think about that part of the organization.
Right.
You touch base with a guy like Joe. Joe understands our needs, work with some of the technicians that respond to our account, and they already know what I need when I call. I just bring up, here, this is the problem I have. They know the system well enough that they can respond. And of course, in this day and age now, where not everybody's in-house anyway,
Right.
it's a great asset. It does help you control cost. You can sort of plan your IT costs out over the length of a fiscal year or a contract, so to say. And it really is advantageous, to say the least. Even if you do have one or two people that are kind of IT directed in your organization, it's nice to have that support that you can call on at any time. And it is the value proposition, as I used to say way back when, is more than pays for itself. So it works out well.
Awesome. Really appreciate that, Bob. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much for your business. And of course, thank you for your friendship. It's been a wild ride, man. And I'm so glad that, we were able to relink up and reconnect and everything. And this has just been great. And I can honestly say that you're the only person that I've worked with in my tenure here at this company that I can call really that's known me as long as you've known me.
Sure.
And my family. So this is great. So thank you for all the above. And thank you to our listeners and viewers. Please stay tuned for our next episode of Strat Xtra. And for more information, visit our website, www.stratosphernetworks.com. Thanks again, Bob.
Thanks, Joe.